Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Worcester Business Journal's webcast forum on cybersecurity, protecting your business from cyber threats. I'm Chris Prosser, the events manager at Worcester Business Journal, and we are joined this morning by a panel of experts who are going to discuss cybersecurity best practices and strategies for protecting your business systems, networks, and workforce. This special session is brought to us by our COVID-19 Crisis Series sponsors, Fallon Health and Webster 5. We thank them for their commitment to the business community, especially during this pandemic, and helping us bring these webcasts to all of you. And before we jump into the discussion, just a couple notes that there is a Q&A box, so the attendees are welcome to enter their questions, and we'll try and get to them throughout the webcast. And then today's webcast is also being recorded, so we will share that link and other resource links with all of you after the webcast. Now I'm happy to introduce our moderator and our panel. First, I'd like to introduce Michelle Dracoleo, who's founder and president of Tower Wall Inc. Hi, Michelle.
Hey, how are you?
Good. Rob Cleary, who is president of Clearcom IT. Hi, Rob.
Hi, good morning, Chris.
We have Fred Gumley, who is the information security officer for Webster 5. Hi, Fred.
Hi, Chris. How you doing?
Good. And Tony Patisi, who is Vice President of IT Operations at Fallon Health. Thank you all for joining us. And Michelle, I will hand it off to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the honor of being here today, and just with such an amazing panel of experts, both from an MSP perspective and protection, but also from the side of the table where day-to-day operations of battling the bad guys. So again, my name's Michelle Dracoleo. We're gonna just take a couple minutes and have everybody introduce themselves, kind of what their background is, and what they do inside their organization. Fred, why don't we start with you?
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Fred Gumley. I am the Information Security Officer for Webster 5. Webster 5 is a community bank headquartered in Webster, Mass. I've worked in the community banking space for over 14 years now with roles in IT and information security. For today's discussion, I bring hands-on experience of what is seen in regards to cyber threats and protection. Look forward to an interesting and informative session.
Excellent. Thank you, Fred. Rob?
My name is Rob Cleary, and I'm the president of Clearcom IT Solutions. We're located over in Sturbridge, Massachusetts. I have a background in management information technology from Nichols College, and started Clearcom about 20 years ago. We started off as just fixing computers, and then we've migrated for the last 15 years or so into managing networks and security for small and medium-sized businesses. And I'm looking forward to having a great morning here on the webcast.
Thanks, Fred. I'm going to come out to Sturbridge and drink whatever water you're drinking, because you don't look like you've been in business for 20 years.
Perfect.
I love it.
It's the vitamins.
Fred, would you introduce yourself? Thank you.
I already did. Do you want me to do
sorry.
it again?
I mean, Tony. I was looking
Okay.
at Tony saying Fred. I apologize.
That's okay.
It's all good. Thanks, Michelle. Hi, everyone, and welcome to our discussion. I'm Tony Patisi, and I've been around the IT industry for around 30 years, driving performance in areas like project management, cloud services, infrastructure and operations, software development, and cybersecurity. Currently the Vice President of IT Operations and the Information Security Officer for Fallon Health, which is a Central Mass insurer and provider of care. I've been with Fallon since around 2007, and prior to Fallon, I've held a variety of leadership positions in various size organizations in various industries. So I think I bring a unique perspective, and happy to contribute to the discussion today.
Excited to have everybody here. And again, my name is Michelle Dracoleo. I'm the CEO of Tower Wall. We have been in business, just kind of scary. I always say over 20 years, but it's closer to 30. And we focus solely on cybersecurity. And we are I call us the preparedness side of an incident. We really work hands-on with our customers to help them build out processes, programs, repeatable, everything that an organization needs to, protect themselves against those bad guys. In this day of COVID, And we all remember that March day when we went home. And all of a sudden, we went from in the office, most of us, to a workforce that was remote. And it was amazing to me how many people just did it with virtual private networks and all sorts of different things that were going on. And, you know, as we've progressed through the last 9 to 10 months, the bad guys have gotten very, very even better at what they do. At the beginning of COVID, one group basically said, we're not going to go after any of the healthcare organizations. And I kind of chuckled, actually, because they're the bad guys. And so they actually did stop for a little while, but the badder guys said, forget that. And we know that hospitals are under attack right now. We know that financial institutions are under attack. We know that higher ed are under attack. And so what we're going to do today is talk about what you can do as a small business or a mid-sized business to actually protect yourself. So with that, Fred, I'm going to ask you, you know, has ransomware forced business leaders to add cybersecurity? That was one of the questions from the actual audience prior. You know, what do you think? I mean, do you think that with all the new things that are going on, that information security has come forward even faster?
In regards to ransomware?
Yes.
Yeah, protection against ransomware is number one priority. There's a list of things that people should do. Backups are probably number one. You got to have backups, because if you do get hit, you got to be able to recover, and you got to be sure to make sure to test those backups as well. You have to have some type of protection on your workstation, some type of advanced threat protection. Artificial intelligence, multi-factor authentication is something else that's very important to protect against ransomware. Security awareness training. People are the human firewall. Got to do that. Some type of email controls. Some type looking at attachments and sandboxing, and some type of link verification. Geo-blocking, something that could be done at a firewall. A lot of us don't do business with foreign countries, so that's also a great thing. And to take all your sensitive data and to encrypt it is probably something else that's also very important.
Well, that's great information. So backups, endpoint, MFA, awareness, email, sandboxing, geo-blocking, which I love, and encryption. Did everybody get that? That was fantastic, Fred. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, it's a lot of information, I know.
No, that was beautiful. So that kind of gets us to the next kind of question. So there's a lot of small businesses on this call. Money's tight. Where do I spend the money? Rob, I'm going to ask you that.
Well, that's a question that comes up quite often. We deal with a lot of small businesses in our area. We first take a look at their budget, and a lot of times companies don't have a budget set aside for cybersecurity. So the first step is, let's plan and let's start to put together a budget. And then we start to, formulate a plan based on their business. The plan that I would put in place for a business that has 3 to 5 users is much different than a plan I might put in place for a business that has 100+ users with multiple locations. So you have to kind of tailor that plan based on the size business that you are and the type of business that you are. I would certainly, recommend, as Fred mentioned, the advanced threat protection, firewalls need to be in place. Backups are crucial. Those are very basic things that every business should have in place. And one of the big things about backups that I'd like to just make sure that I mention, do test restores on those backups. Somebody has to be testing those backups, because oftentimes we push the button and we walk away and it gets backed up every night, and we think that we're all set until something happens and we realize that the restore is failing or a backup is failing, and we didn't know about it. One of the things that my organization does is we do test restores on all of our backups, and I really think it's important that every business does that.
Love it, love it. So the way you approach it is really budget based, and then it's the plan, and the plan is basically risk based on what the CEO really cares about, right? And
Sure,
then
absolutely.
then you look at the technology. So we're looking at the people, we're looking at the process, and then we're looking at the technology. So, the firewalls, the backups, the endpoint protection. So that kind of goes back into what Fred was saying, which is awesome. So Tony, um, we've talked about ransomware. We've talked about, just what a small business needs to look at. From a Fallon perspective, I know that you guys are under attack every day. You are battling the bad guys. And, again, from a programmatic perspective, from a technology perspective, and also from a people perspective, can you just give us a little insight on how you engage your employees to be part of your information security team?
Sure. So, as we've kind of touched on, information security, from a team perspective, is a focused group of individuals that's really on the front line to get into a lot of the technical details with kind of battling the bad guys. But behind that core group of technical people, we rely on the entire organization to really contribute to doing the right thing as it relates to information security protection. We can't be all places at all times. And, the one thing that I found to work very effectively at the organization is to engage the staff. Let them feel comfortable if they do something that doesn't quite feel right, or if they have a question. Give them the opportunity to come forward, raise the question, get some insight, because certainly it's a heck of a lot easier to answer a 5-minute question or to take a look at an email to see whether or not it's safe, versus going through a whole system restoration process because your system got hit with ransomware. So, that's kind of, if there's one takeaway, it's continuing to engage the staff and make sure they feel comfortable, and they're not going to get disciplined if they do something that's not quite right.
The carrot versus the stick, right? So
Exactly.
how are you doing that with this work from home?
So work from home. So we just finished our compliance and security training. It's an annual activity that we run all of the staff through. So from a regulatory perspective, we're required to engage the staff and get them through a certain level of training. But there's ongoing newsletters, communications, webinars, and really that constant engagement with the staff, so they feel like they're a part of the information security program.
Do you do phishing activities?
Phishing activities. No one likes the fish testing, but what it's provided a great deal of insight for us, and I think what we've learned, and I think Fred and Rob will support me on this, is the phishing attacks have become more and more sophisticated. I think everybody's aware of the emails that come from the Nigerian prince telling you won $1 million. There's not too many people. There's not too many people clicking on those emails, but I tell you, everybody gets excited when they see a UPS notification or a message from Amazon or something along those lines. They're ready to kind of click on those emails. And, when we see a big percentage of people kind of clicking on those, when I say big, it's probably in the 10% side of things, of our entire population. So my role is then trying to figure out what's the type of information or training that I can provide to the staff so that they're more aware and more equipped to diagnose these types of fake emails, and just having them ignore them and delete them, certainly if they're not caught through some of the other security tools we have in place.
Excellent. Thank you for that, Tony, because that's, we've been saying for so long that our employees are our weakest link. And I like to say that they're our greatest asset if we train them properly, right? So Fred, not divulging any secrets, but just tell us a little bit about how Webster, helps on the user awareness front with their employees, especially from the work from home.
We do phishing testing as well. It's definitely a training tool. It's not a slap on the wrist tool. It's to provide awareness of pretty much what the bad guy is trying to send, and give awareness, to not click on links, to verify links, to, mouse over them, verify that they're coming from the right place. And just for users to be aware. We do annual security training as well. We just did it about a month ago, put up some slides with fraudulent emails against good emails, trying to compare those, because there's truly a difference. A lot of them are targeted with links, especially with Office 365. Click on this link, enter your credentials here. That's how the bad guy does get your username and password. And I always try to tell people, if you're already signed into Office 365, you shouldn't be clicking on a link to actually put in your credentials. Again, that's not a good thing, right? So, that's what we try to point towards when security awareness training, with especially email. Email's like the biggest threat out there right now. It's the easiest way for the bad guy to get in.
Yeah, I thought I'd add as well, not we know budgets and obviously dollars are pretty tight in some of these difficult times, and there's a lot of resources available for relatively a low cost. I know one of the training programs that we're going to be using for kind of follow-up training for those that really like clicking those test emails for us was actually produced by DoD. And it's a great 15-20 minute training class that is available to all organizations, and you can click through and leverage it. There's a number of trial services out there for conducting phish testing. And Rob probably knows all these because I'm sure he's utilizing them for a variety of his customers.
Excellent. That's great. Go ahead, Rob.
Yeah, one thing that I just wanted to add about phishing emails, like Tony had said, it's not the Nigerian prince, but he mentioned the UPS or the FedEx tracking numbers and stuff like that people are clicking on. But what we're seeing also, throughout our organizations that we handle the IT for, is they've become very, very intelligent on these phishing emails, where a phishing email will actually appear to be coming from, say, the CEO or the CFO of a company, asking the controller to transfer $20,000 into a certain bank account. And it looks like it's coming from the CEO going to another person inside the organization. So those are training areas that I think are very important to understand as well. It may not be a phishing email from outside of your organization. Yes, this email is outside of the organization, but it appears that it's coming from inside the organization. Yeah. So those are areas that can be a quick click, not realizing, because it's an email that you would expect to see. They really have become very intelligent on trying to trick people.
One of my new employees last year, before COVID, had started, and I mean, we do an intensive user awareness because we have to be a fortress. But he got an email from me asking to go buy all these gift cards.
Right.
And he was going to go do it because it came from me. But if he, and it was a learning and training experience. And I was like, no, I would never ask you to do that. But that kind of stuff happens all the time. And Tony, I was going to add, yeah, it's the UPS and all that kind of stuff. It also is the free pizza.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Right. I mean, we have one customer that they have a employee that it doesn't matter what we do, they want that free pizza.
I'd like to add something to this discussion as well.
Absolutely.
Outside of security awareness, email should not be the only communication that's done to complete a task or whatever, especially when it comes to money transactions or business. And I always say, if it doesn't feel right, pick up that phone and call the person. You know, there's stuff within that email that might not sound right from the person if they're using the word greetings instead of, you know, have a good day or something. It just doesn't feel right. Don't be afraid to pick up that phone and call somebody.
Sure.
That was beautiful, Fred. So great story from one of our customers. You know, we had talked about this whole thing, picking up the phone, all this stuff. The CFO supposedly got an email from the CEO. They were in all these discussions with, you know, different organizations doing some mergers and acquisitions and all this stuff. They had a boardroom that had, you know, the glass, you know, kind of fogged in, but you could see. And so the CFO got this email that didn't quite sit right. So he went down to the CEO who was in this conference room talking to these people, and the CFO went, and the CEO went, because he was like, yeah, the meeting's going great. And so the CFO went and transferred that $52,000. It was crazy.
Wow.
And so again, it's that trust and verify, exactly what Fred said. Pick up the phone, you know, don't do thumbs up, speak to that person. If it doesn't feel right, smell right, look right, it's not right. And those bad guys are really good. And some of the phishing activities that some of these technologies or user awareness companies have right now are absolutely stellar. You can't tell the difference. So, you know, having that button for the users to click to let IT know that doesn't seem right, and then put some kind of program in place that gives them, you know, a silver star or something like that, that they get something because they've, you know, put all this stuff in and said, you know, this isn't right. And so now they're actually part of the information security team. And that's what we were talking about originally, Tony. So that was awesome.
Yeah.
So another question that came actually from the audience is, you know, on the spam emails, how do we prevent employees from clicking on them? So, you know, we just talked about that. But then what are some of the technologies or techniques that you guys use to actually help stop them from coming in? Because he said, you know what, I have some technology, but it's not really stopping everything. Can we stop everything? I guess that's the question, Tony.
Yeah, it's a good challenge to stop all those emails. And I think hopefully the takeaway from this should be is there's no silver bullet to solve these problems, right? It's a number and combination of things to prevent the emails from coming in, and there will be some leakage that makes its way into people's inboxes. And now you rely on the training side of things to just have them delete and or ignore. But I think, you know, to kind of touch on some of the technology, and I think especially for some of the smaller organizations, I think there's a misunderstanding around some of the services that are provided as part of the Microsoft Office suite. There's a lot of organizations that had to quickly subscribe to that service, you know, and they think, oh, well, I signed up for the kind of the business standard, I'm protected, right? They may not always be protected with, that might not be enough protection for them. They may need to upgrade their subscription to a premium service, which then provides an additional level of protection and enhancement so that they can manage their remote systems, tune their spam controls, filter some of the geoprotection. Look, if you don't do business across the globe, then, you know, why give yourself kind of that footprint? You know, block those emails from nation states that might be a trouble area.
Goes back to that geo blocking. I love geo blocking. It's a beautiful thing.
Sure.
Yeah. And most firewalls, the next gen firewalls, they all do it now. So it's really good. So thank you for all that. Does anybody have anything else to add?
One thing I just wanted to mention, as Tony was saying, is you tune your spam filter, and we get the question all the time. I'm still getting some junk email, and then if you go a little bit too much, then good emails will end up in your spam folder. So there's that fine line that you try to get as close as you can, but it's important for users to know that it's not going to be 100%. We're going to do our best, the best we can, but it's important to check your spam filter, because a good email, legit email, could get bumped into the spam because we have it set very tight to try to limit the amount of spam coming into the inbox. So those are just areas that it's a kind of a game. We're constantly trying to tweak that spam filter.
And it's interesting because, you know, if you actually showed the users how much spam is actually being blocked, what is it, 98% of email typically? Is that the right number? Is that still the same? Fred, do you know, is that the right number?
Yeah, it's in the mid 90s, I think. It's very high of what actually gets blocked to actually what makes it through the filter.
So those 1 or 2 are probably okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but you still got to be careful, because I mean, it doesn't catch everything. You know, a lot of the adversaries are using email systems such as Gmail and so forth, and it makes it very difficult for a filter to block that. You know, because of even where it's coming from. You know, it's Gmail, so it's very hard for them to filter on that based on that.
got it. So you brought up Gmail. So one of the questions that came in is, would you recommend the use of email to send confidential or sensitive information? And then kind of adding to that, you know, is it safe to use email for confidential and, proprietary information? Fred, do you want to take that?
Sure. Using email straight out of the box, whether it be Office 365, Gmail, or something, or another cloud email provider, is not advised to be doing any type of business function, whether it be financial data or just private business information. And you should use some type of encryption tool. I know it's available within Office 365. I know there's outside providers that actually will do that as well, but I'm not sure what level. Maybe one of the other guys can help me in Office 365, what level, E-level that's provided in. But you know, you can't trust email to transmit data like that. It's just not a good idea.
Absolutely.
Rob,
I can
do you want to add to that?
chime in. Yeah. One thing that I think is important to understand, email is sent through plain text, and you and the recipient may not be the only person that can view that email. So as Fred mentioned, encryption is extremely important, and you have to look at the email and say, is this an email that needs, encryption on? And certainly if you're sending sensitive or confidential information through email, it absolutely should be encrypted. And I believe Office 365, certainly the premium, it's just a one click and you can encrypt that message and get that off to the recipient, and you can feel secure that that message is going to be encrypted. So I think it's very important.
Thank you very much, Rob. So Tony, I'm going to shift this just a little, okay? So we've just been talking about confidential information. We've been talking about encryption. How does an employee know what's confidential?
Well, that's a good question, because I think from business to business, that does change. That information does change. You may have you may be an engineering firm and your information's confidential, and you want to protect that and make sure it doesn't make its way into the wrong hands. Or if you're an organization like ours that's heavily regulated, we're in the business of protecting other people's information. So we rely on a variety of tools, up to and including individuals to help make those decisions. But in the event they've made the wrong choice, we leverage technologies to inspect those emails and make a determination that says, you know what, this looks like this email contains sensitive information. Let me automatically encrypt it. And that kind of goes back to, the tools. You got to find the right tool that works for your organization. You don't want to buy more tools that than you're going to leverage, but you want to make sure you're buying the right tools for your organization. And only business owners and organizations can really make that type of decision. it would be very difficult for somebody like myself or Fred or Rob to really make a recommendation for your business without understanding the type of information you want to protect.
I love that. I love that. And so, I think the tools are really important. I think the program, so building out a data classification program plan so that your employees understand what is confidential, what is private, what is public, and then, really kind of nailing that, and hitting that home, and then enforcing it with the technology. So, bringing in the user awareness for that, and then backing it up with the technology. I think that makes a lot of sense. Fred, do you want to talk about how the bank does their data classification program, or is that too sensitive?
That may be a little too sensitive.
Okay.
But we do use, I mean, we do use like encrypted email. We do have a service that looks at, certain data, non-public private information, credit card numbers and so forth. So, and you get down to like the HIPAA rules and so forth, because there is there's also the Massachusetts data protection laws too. So you got to abide by all those as well.
Exactly. That's really good. The data protection laws. So the CMR 1700, that basically says, you have to have a written information security program plan, right? You have to have updated endpoint protection. You have to have an updated firewall. You have to have user awareness. So there's a whole bunch of different components on that privacy aspect. So Rob, how do you work with your customers, kind of switching gears a little bit, on the different compliance specifications, and talk about the Mass Reg, because if you're a small business in Massachusetts, you need to comply to that. I think it's
Absolutely.
25 users and above.
Absolutely. And what we do is we work with our customers, and as a managed service provider to our customers, we're doing we're checking off the boxes for them. We're providing the endpoint security, we're providing the firewall, we're providing the Office 365, and we're providing phishing campaigns and training users. So we're checking off the boxes to our customers, but it's extremely important because when we walk into a brand new business to us, we're looking at everything, and oftentimes, the customer or the business owner thinks that they were secure and thinks that they were in compliance. And oftentimes that's just education. It's just, they are certainly not trying to skirt around compliance. They just thought that they were doing everything that they needed to do for their business. And then once we kind of dig in a little bit deeper, we just explain and educate our clients on the kind of the check boxes that they need to hit.
I love it. And one of the things we say, and that checkbox is good, but I say just because you're compliant doesn't mean you're secure. So Rob,
Absolutely.
having that, that second set of eyes from your team, I think is really important, especially as a small business, because, the resources just aren't there, across the board, right? There's all sorts of new technology and AI and all sorts of kind of fun stuff, which is good and evil at the same time, because the bad guys have it too right now.
Right.
So a question kind of came in. It's just really interesting. It says, historically, managers needed to know operations, logistics, sales and marketing, etc. But there is much discussion in management circles that familiarization of cybersecurity skills and language has become on par with the rest of the executive level managers have historically needed to know. What are your thoughts on that? Are we operationalizing information security across the board? Does senior management need to pay attention to cybersecurity now? And does everybody need to be part of that? I think we've answered that a little bit, but this is just kind of an interesting, different dynamic of that question. Tony, would you mind taking that?
Yeah, I think so. Look, I don't think we're going to rely on the CEO or the CFO to be information security experts, right? But at the end of the day, the risk is too great for them to ignore, information security, and I'll kind of equate it to natural disasters or physical security, right? There's not too many business owners that wouldn't pay attention to the physical security of their buildings, their locks, their security systems, the life safety systems, and whether or not they're in a floodplain or anything along those lines. Information security needs to bubble up to that same level of awareness, and then rely on organizations and expertise to help mitigate that risk. As we talked about, within seconds, someone can click an email, and now your business is unavailable if you rely on technology in order to produce a product or to sell a product. You're down, and now you're waiting to recover. So that's a pretty big impact for organizations.
I love that. Fred, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, financial institutions, we're all regulated, state, federal level. We're required to do training top to bottom, to everybody. And I think that should resonate back to even small businesses, where people should be aware top to bottom about security, about awareness, what's going on. There's plenty of free, just Google security awareness. There's plenty of tools out there that can be had to show people, or to hit up like an MSP and have them point you in a good direction. But it's very important that everybody's aware, everybody contributes to the protection of the whole company.
Awesome. And so that kind of gets us into a little bit of, and I know we're kind of jumping all over because
Yeah.
cybersecurity is just, there's so many different facets of it. So I'm trying to cover as much as we can and give like little nuggets across the board. So, we're living disaster recovery and business continuity right now, right? And TowerWall does tabletop exercises with incident response planning and business continuity, all that kind of stuff, disaster recovery. We're living business continuity. So, Fred, did you take, and I'm going to put you on the spot here, did you take this as an advantage, again, those little nuggets of gold in COVID, because that's what I'm always trying to look, is like, what good is coming out of this? Being able to use this disaster as a tabletop exercise. Have you taken advantage of that?
Yes, absolutely. Most of our employees are working from home. I think it's around 90%. I mean, it comes down to having procedures in order to recover. Okay, if you got a workforce working from home and something goes wrong, what's your contingency plans? How do you actually get your work done? Can you get back to the office? The Massachusetts has return to work rules with only a percentage of people. Can you get that done? So it kind of, this whole pandemic has involved business continuity like tenfold. It's you got to start thinking outside the box of what you can and can't do. Cross training becomes something else, especially with all this stuff, because some people may not be available. What happens if somebody gets sick or has to go on quarantine for 2 weeks, and can't come into the office, and you have that disaster that something happens that they can't get to the office and somebody else has to. Do you have a plan? You got to have a plan.
And it doesn't matter how big or small you are, right?
Correct. Oh yeah. That goes down to the smallest business possible. It's how do you get things done when things go wrong?
Excellent. Tony, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think what was really interesting about this specific event, and that we're continuing to live, is the kind of the multifaceted components of it. When we go through your disaster preparedness, you plan for kind of one event or some combination of events. But I think the fact that we've got, a fully functional building, that, there were government restrictions which were prohibiting people from going in. We had people that were at risk for coming down with an illness, so you might be down a large number of people. So I think, a lot of this was really around the kind of the business operations piece. You know, from a technology perspective, we had to push a lot of technology out into the field and equip our staff to be functional and obviously secure. You know, the fact that this was multi-dimensional type of disaster, I think really complicated things for many organizations, and they probably weren't equipped to deal with kind of all the fallout. So for example, Fallon Health, we've got a workforce recovery center in the event our building becomes unavailable. Well, geez, I'm not going to activate my workforce recovery center in the middle of a pandemic, even though my building's not accessible, right? So you just kind of, you got to think through some of the plans, and you know, I think many organizations have kind of learned from this. I'm hoping we don't see another one of these, at least in my lifetime. But there, you know, there probably will be different flavors of this, you know, for the foreseeable future.
Thank you for that. Rob, would you have anything to add to that?
Sure. I think the key phrase here is business continuity. And 10 years ago, when we were talking to clients, we talked about disaster recovery. And disaster recovery isn't necessarily the main topic anymore when we're talking with our customers. The topic is business continuity, because 10 years ago, you talk about your building and there was a fire or there was a flood, and what are we going to do? And your business owners would say, well, what's the risk of that actually happening? And it was an area that we had to constantly talk about, and it really didn't go very far with very small businesses. So now the topic is business continuity, and it's like, we're not worried about the fire and the flood as much as we're worried about maybe ransomware, maybe a virus, maybe a pandemic. There's so many different things now that we talk about that. How about if the tree just falls and takes out the wires that are going to power in your building? We have to talk about a business continuity plan to keep your staff up and running, to keep you moving so that you can continue to service your clients. And the topic of business continuity for us over the last 10 months has been a very easy conversation. Business owners, CEOs, CFOs are very open to discussion of what we can do to keep business moving. And with the whole COVID situation since March, now businesses are saying, this is interesting. What good has come out of it? At the snap of our fingers, we can have our entire staff working from home and still conduct business. And that's awesome when you think about the power of technology. And we don't need to all be in the same building anymore. We're doing fine. We have video conferencing, we have Teams, we have email, and everybody's able to work from home. So that business continuity plan that's a big transition from disaster recovery to business continuity. So
I love that. And we are. I say that to our customers all the time. We're living business continuity right now. But we still need to have that program plan. So you need to have the documented incident response plan with your playbooks. You know, if ransomware happens, what are you going to do? You know,
right.
Who's going to do it? You know, in the disaster recovery, you know, again, you know, the tree can fall on the building, or the power can go out, or the internet can go down, because, you know, that can happen. What do you do? And then business continuity. How do we keep the lights on, whether it's in the building or in your house, the communication, all of those things. I think it's really, really important. So we've had a couple questions come in. Are there any other questions from the audience that you would like to ask these amazing panelists? Just wanted to ask really quick. We're going to give you some time back today, which always is the best present we can give to anybody, right? Especially now with these Zoom meetings, and we're on these things 24/7. So really quick, and we're going to take this offline, but I just want to bring this forward because it's an interesting question. As an assistant professor, we try to develop internships in cybersecurity for students. Can you talk about how we can create a central group of opportunities for students to get hands-on experience? I don't think that we need to address that right now, but I think it's something that maybe we could all, collectively put our heads together and come back with some interesting solutions, regarding this question, which I think is amazing. We do a lot of internships with Mass Bay Community College with their cybersecurity program, and it's always good because we, number one, want to give back to the community, but number two, there is a huge shortage, as we all know, of good cybersecurity engineers, admins, systems, any of that kind of stuff. So number one, I just want to thank everybody around this, I was going to say table, around this Zoom meeting for being here today, because you guys were fabulous. I have one question. As a takeaway, what is one gold nugget that you would say to the audience of what they should do to protect their environment? Just one thing. Fred, you first.
Backups. I want to go back to backups because, like I said, if you get hit with ransomware, you have nothing. If you don't have a backup, you don't have anything to bring back your business. That backup has to be offline. If it's part of your online network and you get hit with ransomware, that could be encrypted. So make sure that's offline. Make sure it's in the cloud. Just get it off your network.
Love it. Thank you very much. Rob?
I'm going to say get an outside third-party security audit and get some suggestions and recommendations from another set of eyes on your network. I think that's extremely important. And one little tip that I would mention is passwords. Change passwords frequently. We didn't really touch too much on it, but I was thinking about it as we're going through cybersecurity. Passwords are something that's easy, that doesn't cost anything for people to go in and change passwords and use a passphrase. A group of words is better than your dog's name with an exclamation point. I think a group of words, a passphrase, is where you should be, utilizing, and also I think multiple passwords, not the same password for everything. So I think that would be another area that I would have you just take a look at. It doesn't cost anything, and it's easy to do.
Gotcha. Thank you very much. That's great, Rob, because we didn't touch on passwords. So thank you for bringing that forward. That's beautiful. Tony?
Well, I'm not going to give you two. I'm not going to give you one. So the first one is really multi-factor, right? Multi-factor slows down the bad guys more than you would imagine, right? If you only have the single factor of passwords, they're going to continue to kind of hammer at the passwords until they're able to figure it out. Multi-factor slows them down immensely. So that's certainly one takeaway that I think is relatively straightforward to implement. And then the other one, which is really a $0 cost item, get rid of those obsolete versions of software that you have. Apply the patches, get rid of the versions of Flash, update your Acrobat Reader, update your Chrome, apply the Microsoft patches. Those things are just maintenance items that need to be paid attention to and executed on. So, those are certainly that system and server hygiene is absolutely critical to maintaining a reasonable level of security posture.
I love it. I love it. And then I would add, no matter how big or small you are, you really need to have a documented program plan. In Massachusetts, you have a regulation called the CMR 1700. So you're obligated or regulated to have that written information security program plan. Use that not as a stick to your organization, but as a carrot, because I always say to our customers that you would not, you could live in a house that you built without a blueprint, but would you want to? The same thing with your information security program. You want to have a thought-felt thoughtful, like here I am from a risk tolerance perspective, what Rob brought out at the very beginning of this discussion to, how do I want to mature? And if something bad did happen, you can show that and you can show your due diligence. And there is true ROI in information security right now because you're getting those vendor risk questionnaires. And if you can't answer them, you're not going to get business. So the takeaways that we have, which I love, we have backups, need to do backups, outside assessments, understanding what your risk from a second set of eyes. If you can't implement multi-factor authentication, have strong passwords, passphrases with, special characters and capitals, using numbers instead of letters, and then patching, right? If we patched, we would be in a really good space in place, right? And the bad guys get in because we're not patching. And just like Tony said, man, there's a lot of stuff out there that shouldn't be there. So I want to thank everybody here today. This was fantastic. And I had a really good time. I hope you guys did too. And I hope, the folks that are in the audience, that you came away with some gold nuggets to help protect your environment. So thank you guys very much. God bless and have a great day. Chris, I'm going to bring you back to close.
Michelle, thanks once again to all of you, Rob, Fred, Tony, and Michelle, for taking your time on a Friday morning. Great discussion, very informative. I'd like to thank once again our sponsors of this series, Fallon Health and Webster 5. And as we mentioned, this has been recorded, so we will send the link out later this afternoon to all the pre-registered attendees. Thanks again, everyone. Have a great Friday and weekend. Take care.